Okay, it looks like we're moving a bit faster than I would have otherwise expected. Because personally, I thought we were going to be spending more time just kind of getting set up around Gold Owl, but I'm perfectly fine just getting into the fray of things and actually getting to the point where we're going to be more so learning about their guild directly hands on. Sorry, hiccup there. Directly hands on instead of, just exposition, which I think is going to be completely fine. As of right now, I think that one, these new designs, they look cool. Nothing crazy. The two dude designs are nothing out insane. I know people are like comparing them to like King and Odin, but it's like one of these dudes literally just dressed as the Kabuki actor. He does like I wasn't aware that freaking Odin's got mech gauntlets. Like the only thing that's really even similar is the Japanese style, but Odin didn't invent that. Oh, One Piece didn't invent that. I would just find that kind of funny where it's like you can look it up and it's like these are things that have existed for a long time, and it's only because a lot of, like some of the people in the mainstream, like a good amount of people will see Oda do it and be like, well, that's the first time I've seen do it. It's like people who do stuff with Naruto the first time, and it's like, well, I assume this is where it came from, and not that it came from anywhere else. It was clearly from this first. It was silly, but it is what it is. Regardless, the chapter. So I remember I was actually talking shortly before the chapter came out, and I was saying, well, what if the members of Gold Owl, for like their upper people, like their groups, they have people always in duos, like the Signario sisters. So everybody that we're going to be facing is going to be in pairs, which, at least as of right now, that seems to be the case. We didn't fully get that with Sai and God Serena, but they sent them just as a duo. So maybe that's just how their guild operates. Is usually they're in a duo. Like you have, again, example, God Serena Sai. You have this dude Kotetsu, and what was the other dude's name? Ginan, I think his name was, or something. I'll have to double check. And then I guess technically Duke and Athena, sort of. I would assume maybe by whenever we see them full fight, maybe they'll be as a duo. But as of right now, they're separate because we got the whole surprise bit by Athena at the end, which again, very, very, very weird one. I didn't expect her to just to pop up. I'm very intrigued to see what Mishima's going to do with that. I'm guessing it's going to be more so, an example bit where we're going to see more of what she can do. The characters are going to get a first-hand experience of that, and then, figure out what they can do from there. The whole bit about the tears, though, I'm curious is like, what exactly her power entails to, because obviously if it affects a person, that's, it's got some dangerous aspects to it, but we just don't know the extent of to where it's going to go. Is it going to be even crazier than that? Is it just one of the moves that she has? Is she like, well, I assume she has more moves, but it's like, is this an opener? Is this like a specific technique? Or is she like, oh yeah, I can transmute emotions and thoughts and feelings so I can alter people in specific ways or something like that? Like something that this is just like a little opening bit for, or if it's like, oh, this is just like in a type of ability I have that works, or it's like something that has to do with like the right or root kind of stem idea of what she's doing. But as it were, I still think that what's funny is like the part for me that got me the most excited was the dude. I think it's Ganai is his name. He's the more Japanese one, and he yells Sai's name and turns him into smoke. And I am so curious as to if this has any connection to the technique that Hades used at the start of his fight that scared Wendy and caused Hologram to come save her. And then I think that would be really, really cool. And I talked about a little bit about it during my stream. I think it would make complete sense if Hades knows basics of other types of power systems. Like if he had a decent understanding and utilization of curses, spiritual arts, alchemy, to where it's like, oh yeah, he didn't really use it because he doesn't have like that much of a combat use for it, but he just learned, he delved into these different styles to see if he could figure anything out about, the origins of magic and more important stuff about, pretty much just getting back to the world of great magic and all stuff was there. Like, oh well, maybe these things could give me answers, kind of thing. I think that would be a really, really sleek way to go about it, because if you just did that, it would add some really cool world building that I don't think anybody expected. But the chapter, solid start out. One of the first things I really wanted to see addressed was what was tying them up. Was it just rope and they didn't know about magic sealing stone because maybe they just haven't had the interactions and experience with wizards? And it could have been like, oh, well, Gray and Wendy are waiting to get certain information and then break out. But I was also perfectly fine on board if the alchemists knew about magic stealing stone because it would make them look more competent. Because it's like, oh, well, maybe they aren't dealing with the wizards, but it would make sense of why they would have people research it and figure this stuff out. Like it to me, it was one of those things where it's like it could go either or. But if it goes like if it went the direction of it just being regular rope, they would need some form of like, oh, we didn't know that was a thing, or oh, that hasn't made it over to this continent. Because like if they barely deal with wizards, and just because they know about the weakness, it doesn't mean that they would really kind of like be strong and then utilizing it. I think it makes sense so that at least somebody would have prep for it because they're like, yeah, we transmuted rope out of magic sealing stone. Really cool, by the way, because that makes me wonder if they could turn it, if they could take the stone and turn it almost into anything. Could they turn it into like a shirt, or turn it into like turn it into just like, I'm trying to think of something to be hard to get. Like, what if you had it and turn it into like a paint and you just threw it on somebody and they had to wash it off? So it's like you can't just wipe it off or something, but it's like a full magic seal until you get it washed off. I think that wouldn't be that bad because it's like if you were a character that had like some form of power to get it off. I assume maybe there's a potency thing in there. But it's like, if let's say Juvia, it's like Juvia gets on her, she can't use water magic, I would assume, to wash it off because, it would block her magic. So it's like she would have to go and find water or something. Just as an example. But I do give him props for that just because, again, it makes them look more competent. It makes them look more capable. I wasn't opposed to them not knowing just because I could see it being out of the realm of their knowledge to fully utilize. But I'm glad it's more so this direction because it does make their guild look good. But Rogue is able just to cut him out, get through these ropes, and he's pretty much just being like, if you just left it as stone, it would have been a little more difficult, but the fact it's ropes, yeah. And we already know that you can destroy magic sealing stone from the outside. It's not as much of a problem outside. It's more of just like once it's locked on you, it'd be like the easiest way to say like all the powers are on the like anything, but it's like you have all the ceiling effects on the inside, so it's like the opposite side is just like, yeah, apparently you can just destroy it. It's all good. Nothing too crazy. But they just go through their moves, starts like one-shotting people, taking out guys. They're not even doing crazy attacks. Gray's just doing like his ice make lands. Rogue's got a shatter and slash. Wendy's just doing a roar. Nothing really kind of crazy outside of the realm of what you'd expect for them. But then these new guys show up, and they're looking pretty cool. Like I said, when Gray shows up, he's like, these guys, first off, he's like, these guys are weak, is like, whatever. And then Rogue is saying, like, he senses something different from magic power, and then these dudes show up. I'm hoping that when he says that, it means we're going to get an energy equivalent for alchemy. I think alchemy can stay as being closer to science, but I would like there to be some form of energy equivalent for alchemy. Like how Superior for spiritual arts. You got Bane particles for curses. You got Ether Nano for magic. Something like that, where it's just like, oh yeah, whenever you do an alchemic, is alchemic? I don't know. Whenever you do alchemy, there's like, the reaction causes X, Y, or Z to happen, and then it releases this unique energy that we use. And because that could be how Wendy is able to combat them as well, is she would have to use the conceptual enchant, take that, put that in her magic and stuff. Because I could see that happening. I think it'd be smart and again, also pretty neat. But once these guys show up, they're just talking about, oh yeah, you're doing some numbers on us, but it's cool. We got some materials now, and we do get a little bit more information on that because we know that they were saying before that they wanted to turn their magic into materials. I wonder the extent on that because it's like, is it going to be similar to Daedalus where they are going to drain the magic from you and then utilize it? Or are they going to just straight up like turn you into materials, like convert your being into whatever it is they're trying to get? I was really hoping that these dudes would get some form of, like title. Like, you have the 7 kin, you have the 9 demon gates. I was figuring these guys, the 6 catalysts of alchemic magnificence or something, something like that, just to give these guys a little bit more interest just in setup. Their designs aren't too crazy, I will say. Like one dude, he's pretty much just got like a black leather setup on. He's got, I can't tell if his mask, it's like a Bloodborne hat or something. It kind of looks like it. And then the Japanese dude mostly looks like, he looks very much like the Kabuki actor, except with the gauntlets, with the Met gauntlets. Which I think the Met gauntlets are really cool, like little spice on it, because it's like, it throws it off, the fact that it's the only not older style Japanese thing about this guy. The other dude, Kotetsu, I'm trying to remember what, like, because Tetsu means iron, right? And then I think Ko is Flash. So his name, I think, just because usually names like stuff like that have a hint at their power. So if his name is like Flash Steel or something like that, something along those lines, like Bright Steel, I think that he'll be a really good matchup for Rogue. It's very clear that this dude Genai is going to be fighting Gray, because Gray is, when the first bit, he's just, first off, Sai is just hyping him up. Sai's just being like, oh yeah, these dudes are here. We got this. We're going to be looking for some valuable alchemy material. And I told them about what happened at Doggermag Labyrinth, and they were hyped. So we're coming after you. And then he just, this dude just yells Sai, and then Sai and his other fodder dudes turn into smoke. And he's just, he doesn't kill him. He says, like, Sai, stand back and just shut up for a bit. Which is nice. This is not killing Sai. These guys haven't seemed evil, and I don't think there was a reason enough for them to kill Sai. But at least it says, like, okay, well, Sai is okay-ish. I was hoping Sai would stay, because I think he would be a really good fight for Wendy. Just because, like, he hasn't been a fighter, but one thing to note is while Gray, Rogue, and Wendy were throwing attacks all around, Sai didn't get hit. And we don't know if, like, they just didn't aim at Sai. I doubt that, considering they just seemed to go through the whole room. But Sai, I would assume, at least is able to dodge these attacks. So it's like Sai could have the reaction and kind of like combat speeds, but it's like, oh, he doesn't have any of the other stats to kind of keep up. Kind of like someone like Lizana, where Lizana really just has the speed. That's pretty much it. Other than that, she has like no Spriggan tier stats. Where it's like, oh, well, Sai could have reaction pretty much. I think that would be fine, especially for somebody if he's based more on tricks and like weird niche abilities. I think that would make sense of why he would be way more like reaction and speed based and nothing really else. So it's like if you had him and Wendy fight, Wendy could have a really good opportunity to like learn the tricks and trades of alchemy, figure out how to combat dudes with like weird abilities and whatnot. I think that'd be really good, because it would also put a decent amount for Sai as well, because like Wendy obviously can fight, but Wendy in a fight like that would be way more of a utility character, and that seems to be what Sai is. So I think if Sai put up a decent fight in a utility battle with Wendy, I think that'd be great. As I mentioned before, Wendy is one of the best supports in the series. There's only a couple people you can really look at and be like competition. People like people like Irene, and realistically, you can give any of the archive people, and I guess to a degree LF Saria, but like not as much. I mean, Hibiki is easily one of the best supports. He download freaking spells in your brain, but these dudes are looking fine. The dude Kotetsu definitely has, I know, a lot of people's interest, because he has a sword. Rogue has a sword this arc. Not only does Rogue have a sword this arc, Mishima went out of his way to have a panel of him swinging a sheath sword. The sword isn't out, but it is still being utilized, and his opponent has a sword. For those who don't know, and I'll just give a quick message for this. For those who don't know, and maybe they're not newer to Fairy Tail, but it's something they haven't paid attention to. I'll say this as somebody who was there when Sting and Rogue were first introduced, and as we were getting them in real time. Rogue's sword was hype. Everybody was like, oh, fuck yeah. A Dragon Slayer swordsman, shadows, that's badass. Those are edgy things that just spell cool. You combine those together, that gets a cool outcome. Doesn't matter if it's edgy. Dude never used the sword. Dude never even pulled it out. And multiple different outfit designs, he doesn't even have it on. Like, he's never unsheathed it. So it's like, we're now maybe going to get something with the sword? The sword for Rogue has been funny. But at the same time, it like to me, I also just have like high questions on it because it's like, is there going to be a reason why he's had it this whole time and never used it? I really like the idea that it was like a gift or something, and he didn't know how to use it, but he felt obligated to have it because it was wearing it out of respect. But he's like, I gotta learn how to use it. Or if it was just like, what if one day Rogue was shopping and it was on sale, and he's like, you know what would make me look badass? What if I became a swordsman? But then he like impulse bought it, and then he's like, I don't know how to use the sword. And then you look at it, and it's like maybe like before the Grand Magic Games up till around now, he's been sword practicing in secret, so now he can actually use the sword. That would be amazing. I think that would be an amazing plot twist. Just because it would be funny. There'd be no there's like nothing that it would like look bad in the story. It's not like one of those things. Like for example, Avengers, like they have the where they explain the cat scratch for Nick Fury, but they made it silly. And it's like you can have jokes, but when you hype up something as serious and then make it silly and dumb, it makes the people who are interested look silly and dumb, and it makes the idea of the plot look silly and dumb when you do something like that. Whereas like something like this isn't in that area because it's something that we know of, but it's not something that has ever really been touched on. So it's like if we get something that just gives us like, oh yeah, like a clear cut explanation, but also gives us a little bit of character expo for Rogue, I think that'd be great. One thing also just I'm gonna throw it out there just as something I'm gonna slip into the conversation. One thing I'm hoping to get out of this fight, listen, you have to understand, this is a Rogue solo fight. When was the last time we had a Rogue solo fight? Godjill? Like, long time ago. And really, when you think about it, Sting and Rogue have almost nothing separate. They're almost always together. Even in their spin-off, they're next to each other most of the time. Like they're not always there, but relatively, like Sting or Rogue goes somewhere, the other is bound to be there joining the fight shortly after. So it's like I don't see Sting joining this fight. I don't think you would have to. These guys don't look too powerful. I'm guessing that like the Smoke Dude. What I'm hoping for is like I want Gray to have a flex off. I want Gray to go into this fight and just start bopping this dude. I want Gray to just be freaking smacking everything this dude sends his way, and Gray is just absolutely dominating this fight. I want Gray to be like, oh crap, this is a tricky move. It bothers me for like a little bit, and then bam, figure it out around it, go. I'm hoping Rogue has more of like a medium difficulty fight, just because Gray should be much stronger than Rogue. That's not really something we should have to really think about. But Rogue as a solo fight, I would love to see Rogue use a secret art. I would love to see Rogue use a secret art. If like he can stay on base and use it, and it's not gonna like make this guy look crazy powerful because obviously he's got amps and stuff, and the fact that like his true power and the highest peaks are gonna come out when he's tag team battling with Sting. So it's like him solo. He beats one of these guys like medium or so difficulty with a secret art. That'd be great because he's one of the only people that doesn't have a secret art. Him and out of the original 7, I guess you can really call him. Like him and Cobra don't have secret arts. It's like Kiryu got a secret art before you, dude. Come on. And then we get back to this little forest. I'm super curious if there's going to be any lore reasons as to why this forest is like this. It might just be designed for fun, but it's like everything is triangular. Like all of the leaves are triangular, the mushrooms are triangular, the cave entrance is triangular. I wonder if that's just a funny design thing, or if like there's going to be some form of reason why it's like that. I'm curious. I don't know. But they just like rush into the cave. Natsu just one-shots this old lady for messing with Lucy, and she's like, oh, you're not going to hold an old woman. He's just, while Sting is interrogating her, and he's just like, I don't give a shit. I've always liked that about Natsu, though. I've always been very on board with it, like the mindset. It's like, listen, when it gets down to an enemy, I don't give a shit if they're old or a woman or a kid. It's like, once you become an enemy of us, you're an enemy. Just because you're an older person does not mean that you get special rights. Because, like, think about it. This old lady is, like, she doesn't seem to be a fighter, But it's like, just because you're old doesn't mean you're exempt from doing cruel things. Like, we don't know what Gold Owl would have done with Lucy. As far as we know, though, she would have been killed and converted into materials. So, from Natsu's perspective, he doesn't care. This is just some old person that was putting his friend's life in danger. So it's like, he doesn't really give a shit if they're an old person. Doesn't matter. He's not killing her, too. He's just punching her a bit. He's giving her the business. She'll be fine. But afterwards, he's just like, listen, Sting, you can do weird things to her in my place. And he's just like, I'm not going to do that. I did think it was funny that Sting is like freaking out. And it's like, Sting's like, oh man. But it's like, you guys went crazy on the Gaga Rock dudes. And the Gaga Rock guys, I would say that they were less so like anger inducing. Because when you think about it, they attacked Natsu. Natsu went through him pretty fast. Like, this lady knocked out, kidnapped Lucy and Happy, and then like put him in a cave and was gonna sell him. Of course he's gonna be mad. He doesn't want to deal with their dumb shit. He's be like so pissed off at people like this. He's like, what the fuck are you trying to do to my pals? Get the hell out of here. And then the last bit Athena showing up. So I didn't expect that. When I saw the silhouette of Athena, I wasn't 100% sure. I was like, maybe this is another character, but obviously a little bit more of the mechanical bits you see is an indicator of it. But she, one thing I do like how, I need to look at the kanji of it real quick. Let me see this real fast. Because I like how that when they, I don't know if this is the fan translator guys, when they put it in that she's like introducing herself and she has like a different font style as she's talking, like right next to her. I just want to see if it's similar to like that in the Japanese version, just because I didn't look at that specific panel much when the chapter came out. 1 second. Let me go look at this. I really want to see what the deal is with this. And then we'll kind of wrap it up and we'll get my final thoughts and whatnot. I just want to see what the... Oh, it does. It's like in a slightly less bold. So I'm wondering if it's like, it'll be like, if she talks, it's like one of those robot things where it has like a tiny other robot voice that speaks like immediately after, like out of her head or something. Something neat like that, or just like a different pitch. But when she's there, they all start crying, and she's saying that she's transmuted their tears and it has to do with her powers. It's a weird opener. It doesn't really tell us much other than it's a weird ability. One thing to note about this that we see, Natsu starts crying, Lucy starts crying, Yukino starts crying, Happy starts crying, but we do not see Sting crying. And I think it would make sense if it was like, oh yeah, this spell, it's we're using it, it's a whiteout spell, or I guess yeah, because she was white mage. So, I guess not whiteout, because obviously that would involve draining magic. You know what I mean? A quote unquote white magic spell, because then it's like, oh well, Sting could be a way to deal with that. Sting could be like, okay, well this doesn't affect me. I got to get you guys out of here and go about something like that. I could see that happening, because it's like, to me right now, This is an exposition bit. This is going to be showing us a little bit about Athena, and it's probably going to be more about them having to get away. I could see like maybe like an exposition bit where it's like maybe Natsu tries to use some attacks on her, doesn't work. Maybe she'll use a couple more abilities, but I see Sting getting them out of there as long as Sting isn't affected by this ability, which as far as I can tell right now he isn't. So I think it would make sense if he's able to do it. Because one thing that I would really like to see, and this is probably the last thing I'll mention, and this is, I've mentioned it before though, but it's something I want to see for like the whole arc, is I want Sneak and Rogue to use White Shadow Dragon mode. I want to see like, what would be great here for me, it's like they get in a spot, Sting goes, bam, White Shadow Dragon mode, grabs all, like pulls all of them into a shadow and gets them all out of there. He's just like, nuh-uh, fucking zips out. Gets them out of there. And I think that would be fine. I think that'd be great. Because one, I think it makes sense for the escape. Two, I've mentioned before, I think Sting and Rogue need to have White Shadow Dragon mode to some capacity. Maybe they can't just pop it on anytime they want, but if it's like, they stand next to each other, they pump knuckles, they channel magic, and then bam, White Shadow Dragon mode for either, or for both of them. I think that needs to happen in some way, shape, or form, because it's been a year plus. There's no way that they didn't train it in some fashion. over the last year. There's no way that they didn't say like, "Hey, dude, you remember when I gave you my magic and you became the most powerful that we had ever seen you, and you defeated that guy that was stronger than any of our opponents we'd ever really faced." Obviously, I'm not counting Acnologia afterwards, but in their own fight. So, like I said, solid chapter. I like this a lot more than the last two chapters, because it's like it was partial setup, partial exposition, and also just the new characters. I think getting the new characters also made it really exciting, just because I wanted to see these. You know, I like seeing the new designs. These guys aren't like, their designs aren't crazy. It's not like looking at Duke or the Signarda sisters or Athena or even the God Serena redesign and being like, wow, these are amazing. It's more just like, oh, these guys are kind of cool. They look a little intimidating. And then obviously people are stoked for the sword, dude. People want to see Rogue pull out that sword. It's funny because it's like regular ongoing, like this regular ongoing fairy tale people thought this is gonna be the last thing I mentioned. They probably don't notice as much, but the people who like actually like talk about the series know, and they're just like, when is he gonna draw that fucking sword? Because it's something that you eventually come down to conversation wise. Like if you don't go much into like talking about the series, you just maybe watch it and it's whatever. But you talk about it, that sword's going to come up. Because that's like the main thing about Rogue that people want to really talk about. It's like, what's going on with the sword? Because it's like Rogue doesn't have anything else really kind of going on right now. The future Rogue plotline, I think, is still a possibility. I don't know if it's happening right now, but there's always that kind of maybe, just based off of like the concept of the shadow should always be with him. It depends on like the severity of it and like if he can get quelled or what, but who knows? There's some definite question marks in there, but like I said, I thought this was some pretty solid stuff. I really liked the match setup just because like we had some new characters. Gray is looking some hype. Rogue is looking like he's got some potential hype, which fantastic. Like I would not have expected going to this arc. Not only could I potentially gotten a fight like this, like Gray and Rogue up against some opponents together, but like at the same time, they're not fighting 2-on-2, but like their matches are going at the same time, just because those are two of the characters I probably would have picked. Like you look at all of them and I said just pick two and pick some of the fights for them. Like early, I would have probably picked Rogue and Gray because I think Gray really deserves and needs some new stuff like that, and then Rogue. I think Rogue just does as well because we've seen very little solo Rogue in the series. So I think it'd be cool to see Rogue get up there and actually perform. Anyway, other than that, though, like I said, I thought it was pretty good. I liked it a lot more than the last two chapters. I was worried it would have some setup. It did to a degree, but it was more about it was more of a logical setup to where like events happened. It wasn't just like, yeah, we moved to the last chapter, we got some information, moved to the next town, and then poised up for pretty much this chapter. Like it gave us some information about Gold Owl. Obviously, like the gold ceiling stones, the magic ceiling stones turn into rope, so that's cool. It shows they're smart. It shows also they probably have other things transmute into other things with uses. I don't know. Like they could do Jupiter cannon, transmuted into a freaking, I don't know, a glove. So every time you slap somebody with it, it's like a full freaking Jupiter blast. But yeah, Rogue busting them out. That was cool. Just some general attacks. Nothing crazy out of that. These dudes showing up, I thought was neat. I'm really hoping Mishima sticks with the two. Like each of them is gonna come in a duo just to see like multiple of these fights. I'm really wanting to see just some fights you didn't expect. Like again, Rogue and Gray. Maybe the next one. I know Natsu and Sting is a little bit more what you'd expect, but we still haven't really gotten that, and I know people want that. Lucy and Minerva. I want Lucy and Minerva. I know people have been saying Urza and Minerva. I think Lucy and Minerva makes more sense and it works better because it also makes more sense for Minerva to be around Lucy's level in terms of strength than Urza's level. Like we know where Minerva was at prior to Alvarez or prior to 100 Years Quest, because if she was able to contend to a degree with the Historia Spriggan, she should have been at least like high Wizard Saint tier, which makes sense given where she was in Grand Magic Games, already Wizard Saint tier, moving up the ladder, obviously like a year or so later, and then a year plus more on top of that, with her potential, her magic, where she was already at. I think it makes sense for her to be, within this brigand territory, but I don't think it would make sense for her to be up where Urza's at, given where Urza's feats are standing with people like Misaki and whatnot. But for somebody like Lucy, I can see Minerva being more akin to that, because it's like Lucy's made way bigger strides since the Grand Magic Games, but it wouldn't surprise me if Minerva is able to really kind of keep up. Because think about it too, Minerva was one of the, if not the most important member of Sabretooth, like, growing up, because it was like the 5 members that really kind of switched their standing, and Minerva was the leader and strongest of those 5. So it's like, we already knew that she had a lot of strength, a lot of potential, a lot of just general things that had high value to her. So it's like, if we get to the point where, oh yeah, she's actually training again, she's really pushing herself, I could see her being in that general level. Like, she's one of those characters that was within. Like, Cogger, if Cogger really busted her ass, I could see her maybe getting there. But it's just like, she would need stuff in between to really kind of, like, make me say, okay, yeah, I can see it. After how bad she got done dirty by Larcade, it's kind of hard to say. Because it didn't even seem really like, with Wall, like she was really going to do anything. She just cut up some missiles, and then, like, he casually threw out. So it's like, he didn't really mind. But good stuff. I thought this was good. The bit with Athena at the end, I'm very interested in that. I want to see what Athena has to do, but I won't lie, I'm more interested in the Genai and Kotetsu fights, just because I want to see Gray fight. I really want to see Gray get something new, not in terms of like a brand new, full new power, but like Gray to advance his ice make in some way. Like, what if Gray, like, I'll just give an example. What if Gray, while fighting, started to, like, every once in a while he made a ice clone of himself, but because he can do static ice make now, that clone starts to do ice make spells. So it's like Gray continuously, as you fight him, think about it like this: as you fight Gray, the speed and count of his ice makes increase. So it's like, yeah, every minute or so, or every 30 seconds, he makes another Gray. That Gray is throwing spells. Every single few seconds, another one pops up, and you can't figure out which one the real one is. So it's Gray is just continuously just upping his attack output, upping the clone count, and just making it more and more difficult to be around him. Just because I think the difficulty in that, for example, I keep saying this is going to be the last thing. Other last thing. For example, if you've read Demon Slayer, the Kokoshibo fight is a good example of what I mean. Or you can play something like Dark Souls. But it's like one of those fights where it wouldn't be as difficult because like the opponent is like insanely powerful, but you would just have so many mechanics and things going on at once that you would get overwhelmed. Because, like, think about it. You if there were multiple Grays, you would have all these different attacks that have no limitations to what shape they can be, what angle he's taking it from, that he could just keep throwing at you. So it's like you would be running out of less and less space to move. You'd be running out of less areas to try and to kind of get to for dodging. And you never know. It's like, okay, I moved to this base. Is there another one already set up? Is there an attack coming from that way? Is there an attack already prepared if I go to that way? Very high potential hype in there, but we'll see. And then Kotetsu, like, I want to see Rogue Sword. I mean, that's just obvious. Even if it's not special, I just want to see him draw it just for the sake of it. But anyway, other than that, comment below. Thumbs up the video, but for the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But I appreciate you guys. Subscribe, and thank you all for listening. Bye.